floods. I would now ask gently Mr. Luka Mitrovic. He is the head of the Hydrometeorological Institute of Montenegro. How its water management and climatic changes in Montenegro, how they are actually related. My colleagues helped me develop one presentation to inform you how the system functions in Montenegro. We have a lot experience how to react in this kind of situation, because in 2010 in Montenegro we had huge floods and a lot of damages caused by these floods. We had a lot of these presentations, a lot of warnings and stories, etc., and conclusions actually we came up with. We analyzed everything that happened, and our prognosis came true. So we were asking for the reasons why these things are happening. So we defined a lot of factors which are impacting that in the winter months, November, December. In the mountain, we have a lot of rainfall, much more than usual. Of course, this year it was different, so every year is different in the region and in Montenegro. So we are defining that very well, and we are good in forecasting that for early warning. We are doing what we can in this regard. So this is a presentation related to something you all know. These are some elements for the water management, so I might just repeat them. So the importance of water as a basic substance for the survival of people. So we're going to skip that. We all know that Montenegro is one of the richest areas in terms of water, not just in Europe, but maybe in the world. We are probably within the 4% of the global territory rich in water. The average precipitous in Montenegro is 1,000 milliliters. The downfall of that is the geological composition. More than 70% of territory of Montenegro is limestone, so this water is going down, and then we have a lot of creeks, and so this is a problem which requires a lot of engagements of the scientific community. This is a problem for us, how these big quantities of water which we get from the atmosphere, how to protect them and keep them, because we have a lengthy drought period which is being prolonged year in, year out because of the climatic changes, and these drought periods are longer, so the deficit of water is even identified here in Montenegro. We have the balance of the groundwater, of the surface waters. We have small density of population. Montenegro 600,000, so not a big consumption of water. So if you look at per capita, we are using even 10 times more water than in some other European countries. So we are rich in water, so we are not so serious about saving the water. But we hear these scenarios regarding the reduction of precipitates in the Southeast Europe will definitely require from us to be more serious in terms of the water usage. Because all these waters, thanks to the geomorphological territory of Montenegro, are threatened a little bit, both in terms of pollution or being lost through the limestone cavities. So we have now extreme droughts. Some years go even up to September and October. So for several months we don't have precipitates. The reserves of the accumulated water are less and less every year. The, so we cannot compensate for the loss of precipitous, so we will have to engage the entire society in combating this phenomenon. Montenegro is defining its development in line with the concept of sustainable development. We have a lot of strategy of the sustainable development, which is defining how to use the water, and this is well drafted and defined in line with the best practice and EU directives. But one thing is what we have in the paper, but the other thing is what we implement on the field, both as institutions and individuals. I think we are going good in Montenegro with this process. I think a lot of people expect to do that overnight, but these are time-consuming processes. So I think as a community, I think we have institutions ready to respond to these challenges. This is a basic. We have certain laws here. In 2007, we adopted the water law, which is aligned with the EU directives. Then law on water management and financing, 2008. Then law on waters is completely aligned with the Article 7 of the Framework Directive of Waters. Then we are adopting the water management plans, which is adopted by the government on the proposition of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. So we are working on these plans, water management plans. Montenegro has two basins, half. The Black Sea basin is a little bit bigger, so we have big rivers here, but Lim, Čehotina, Tara, and Piva, they are going to the Black Sea basin. So we have a responsibility to preserve these waters for those downstream, actually, of the rivers. So we have a water management plan on this area. Now we have a second basin, which is the Adriatic basin. So we have the rivers Zeta, Morača, Skadar, Skojezero, Bojana, Trebišnica. Also developing a water management plan for this basin as well. We are working on both plans in parallel. This is the legal obligation of the ministry. What is also important in Montenegro, we are involved in the work of many international bodies. We are talking here about the protection of the river basins of Danube and Sava. We are actually not a full-fledged member regarding the river basin of Sava. As an institution, Hydromet Institute is involved in numerous projects, but it's up to the government to find a way how we can actually become a full-fledged member in the Sava Commission. We have already, as our institute, a lot of activities and meetings. And what is a problem for us in Montenegro, in the Hydromet Institute, we still haven't completed the work regarding the master plan of hydrological stations, 51 of them at all, 22 in the Black Sea level and the remaining in the Adriatic basin. It is very important that so far we haven't completed work about exit profiles, these very important hydrological stations on the outflow of our big water currents. This is a problem which we actually are hoping that with the help of the government of Montenegro and international community, maybe through IPA funds, we can implement these very important projects so the countries which are downstream of our rivers have the information so that we can do the networking. And this is the basic goal of the Sava Commission, to share the information, and through the annual reports and historical data we have a total image to know exactly what is going on in the basin of River Sava. We also have a joint position regarding the Drina Commission, which is part actually of Sava Commission. We also cooperating with Albania regarding the basin of Drin River, exactly because of the problem which is very topical for us for a number of years. 150 years practically, the Skada Lake and the catchment of river Drin or Bojana and Moracha. The entire hydrological system every year is becoming more complex, and the big threat for the economy and the life of the people in that area. We're talking about 20,000 square meters, so that basin, here we have also not just Montenegro and Albania, but also Macedonia and Kosovo, because the river Bojana, which is outflowing all this water during the big rainfall and the melting of the snow, is not capable to take out the water from the Skadar Lake, and then we have dramatic floods. For example, in 2010 we had twice in Albanian Skadar, they had 1 meter water level in this downtown Skadar, and here we have a dozen of settlements flooded. So we are working on that issue together with the international community. This is not a problem which Montenegro and Albania can solve by themselves. It's a bigger problem, as I said, for 150 years is a problem for this region. This is how it looks, the geographic map of Montenegro. This is these two basins. This is the borderline watershed between the north and south of Montenegro. The Black Sea basin is a little bit bigger. Here we have rivers, the key rivers with their catchments. These are the data for these two basins, and in the southern part you can see that the only water currents which are related to the middle of Montenegro. In the western part of Montenegro there are no big water currents, and we know that in that area we have 3,000 milliliters of precipitates. Because of the geological composition of the soil, because everything is going into the groundwaters. On our website of the Hydrometeorological Institute, all data are available. We have automatic stations at more than 40 profiles, locations. We have data in real time, and this is very important from the aspect of forecasting the floods. We have the information which can be very useful with the quality weather forecast and the data from our hydrological stations where we measure the water level can be a good input for the early warning system regarding these flood waves. These are some data about all these catchments, length, altitude, etc., number of population, which is within the certain river basin or the catchment of a certain river, people who are actually using these water resources, how these water resources are used, etc. Montenegro hasn't exploited its water resources both in quantity or quality terms, so we have a lot of potential and a great potential for the development of Montenegro. We should be doing that, of course, in line with the law. Here, as a general conclusion, a true relationship to the water represents important preconditions for the international integrations of Montenegro. So we have a lot of challenges before us, both as institutions and individuals, but I'm sure at least what we are doing in the Hydromet Institute, we are meeting the European and global standards, and setting up of our Hydromet network of stations is done according to these standards, and we actually did this station network because we wanted to forecast the flood waves, And when we had the enormous rainfalls, precipitous, when we have a big inflow uh, threatening the settlements and the people, this specificity of the climate changes will be in the future even greater pressure for us here. These intensive precipitous are actually are impacting on the big torrent currents. So we have a big amplitudes from the even to up to 100 ways in terms of the water level and the quantity of water depending on the time of the year. So this is something we have to bear in mind. These are not the rivers going through the valley. The only one with a small downfall is River Boyana, and it's also making a lot of problems to us because the River Dream is actually entered into the riverbed of Boyana, so it has more water than the riverbed can actually carry. So probably in this regard we will need some political decisions to solve that problem. This should be solved through the international community, whether through the arbitrage. You know, the Montenegro always asked for the river Dream to be returned to the old riverbed, which in 1957 actually was diverted to the riverbed of Boyana, and ever since we have a problem. So this was never materialized. We know that Albania has certain settlements where there was a river Dream with 100,000 people living there. That was a problem. But how we are going to solve this problem? From 6 meters you have to outflow such quantity of water. This is something very problematic from the scientific and even political aspect, which definitely will have to be solved, because as far as we see, the climate changes will condition the big impact, carry big risks. We already gave the answer why we have so many precipitates in the winter times, because the winter temperature in Montenegro has increased for 2 or 3 Celsius with respect to the 1960s. And we have proven that these high temperatures are the key reason for the floodings both in Skadar Lake and in the north of Montenegro. When you have the increase of temperature 2 or 3 Celsius, in average, this is worrisome. We want to help to our community. That is why we are involved in this project. We want to continue with the project and future concrete activities. Thank you.
Hvala gospodine Mitroviću.
Thank you, Mr. Mitrovic. The comment that you gave earlier, maybe a priority would be to set up the early warning system in Montenegro. Are there any time frames for such plans? What are the plans? Well, I am the director. I have been for 8 years now, a lot. And one of the most important issues is developing early warning capacities. I believe in Montenegro in public we already have a positive attitude of the public towards us, because our forecasts are very reliable. We are very proud of that. We are proud of our staff working in the forecast section. We have only 5 people working there. In other countries of the region, they have 20 to 30 people working in that section. So we do have quality results in terms of forecasts. But we also wish to develop that system, and that project has been nominated to the World Meteorological Organization. Actually, it is a regional project. They will develop meteorological radars for the entire region. Montenegro will require just 1 radar, not 2 radars, meaning that the radar systems from Croatia, Serbia and Bosnia-Herzegovina will be covering a part of Montenegrin territory. So we'll be exchanging data, we'll set up a joint network. You know that in Europe they have OPRA, Joint Radar Network, which was already operational, and Albania, Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia-Herzegovina are the only countries which do not have a radar system. I've been asked by journalists how come Montenegro did not develop it yet. In 82nd year, in 1982, we had a World Bank loan for such a project. However, our countries did not actually decide to set up such a meteorological radar system, because the assessment of economists and of experts was that Montenegro, from orographic point of view, is impossible for the operation of such a system, because such a surface, such a unit of surface requires 10 times more radar systems than the situation in flat plain area. So they gave up. We missed the chance that we had in the past, and many countries of this region have a problem now on what to do concerning this. And I believe Serbia has transferred the competencies to the Ministry of Public Administration and Interior. It is a burden for the hydrometeorological institutes. On one hand, we are happy that we do not have that system. On the other hand, we are sorry we do not have an early warning system. So there is a conceptual design which was developed. We have defined locations, access roads. We are working together with the armed forces of Montenegro to use the same location which is used by the armed forces radar, to use the infrastructure which is used by the military radar in the future for our radars. They are not entirely compatible, but the infrastructure can be used. So there are several actually aspects of this project which are being developed at the moment, but for the moment we use quality aspects, quality models, and we compensate for the early warning system model. Early warning is something you can give 5 to 6 hours in advance. In Montenegro we give an announcement possibility in Montenegro, for example, to store excess water gathered in the winter period and just store it and use it in the summer period. Yes. If we speak about climate change, if you analyze some parts of Asia, and Spain, where they're making reversible reservoirs for storing excess water in periods taken from periods of year where there is excess water. You know that Madrid has the so-called Victoria's water system. They use water which has been stored in the winter. They have dozens of such reservoirs, and Montenegro at the moment does have excess water. So in the summer period we know that autumn is coming soon, that autumn rains are coming soon. However, if the drought period gets too long, then we will have to think about the option to build multi-purpose reservoirs. In Montenegro we had many discussions whether such reservoirs should be built for the needs of hydro energy. We think they should be built not just for the needs of hydro energy, but also for the irrigation purposes, for water supply purposes, for every purpose for which water can be used. Water is a big potential of Montenegro. We have Piva Lake. It has 1 billion cubic meters of water which is used for the production, for the generation of electricity. That is first-class pure water, potable water. You can use it for potable purposes directly from the lake. So our northern region has a lot of natural resources which can certainly be the driving force for the development of the rest of the country in the future. There are some examples in Nikšić field where lakes have been built for the needs of Perućica hydropower plant, but each day there are problems there. It will certainly increase the price of life in that area, but we need to keep water resources, to preserve them, to also keep waters, a lot of rainfall, to keep them for the time of the year when there aren't many